opportunity to present the result of the study. This study is the Renewable Energy Market Analysis Southeast Europe. Is part of a series of renewable energy market analysis that IRENA conducted since 2016, previously focusing on the GCC region, Latin America, Southeast Asia, and now Southeast Europe. The objective of these studies is basically to take together all the knowledge of our agency and focusing it in one region of the world, trying to understand what can be done, what are the trends, where the market is going, etc. Just to clarify, for Southeast Europe, here we intend 11 economies, Albania, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Croatia, Kosovo, North Macedonia, the Republic of Moldova, Montenegro, Romania, Slovenia, and Serbia. The region is known for this reliance on fossil fuels. Thanks to domestic lignite reserves, 1/4 of the total primary energy supply is covered by solid fossil fuels. 3/4 of the energy comes from fossil fuels, mostly imported. And this is particularly true for the non-EU part of the region. However, I dare to say that this is a pivotal moment for renewable energy in the region. This next decade can be the moment where renewable energy can actually increase the share of total primary energy supplied. And this is because the cost of renewable energy is decreasing sharply. The renewable energy framework, policy framework is changing, and the investments are coming in the region for renewable energy. So, to understand the future, let's have a very quick look at the past. I'm sorry if this is a distillating conference, but I want to show how policies actually change the shape of the energy sector in this region. Here we see the installed capacity of renewable energy in terms of power generation in the EU area and in the non-EU area. And we can see that there was a period with large development of wind and solar PV, and these new technologies were 4 times more developed than traditional technologies. However, as soon as the objective of the RED 2020 were achieved and the supporting policies were phased out, you see the sharp decline in installation. And if we look instead of capacity at the investment in terms of million US dollars in the region by jurisdiction, we see a similar pattern. Money came to the region to be invested in new renewable energy, and this is not just for the sake of installing some megawatt. This investment created new jobs, they created a supply chain, and therefore they made a change in the energy sector of the region. And obviously, as the installation declined, also the investment declined. But now we see a returning investment returning in the non-EU area. The red there is Serbia, who's leading the renewable energy investment in the whole Southeast Europe. Now, and here coming back to the heating and cooling, why the investment in renewable energy and the policy were phased out? One reason may be the cost, but there was also a second reason, and the fact is that here, for what we can see from this graph represents the sectoral comparison between 2020 targets and the 2016 renewable energy shares in total final energy consumption. The green dot were the objective in the National Renewable Energy Action Plan. Yellow is electricity, red heating and cooling, blue transport, and the dark is the overall energy sector. And we can see that the heating and cooling sector overachieved their target in 2016, 4 years before the 2020 targets. This is because, thanks to the National Renewable Energy Action Plan, thanks to the Renewable Energy Directive, countries started to look again at the residential sector. They started looking again at how energy is actually consumed. And the result was that there was a very large share of renewable energy in an informal way, in traditional biomass. Did that mean that the actual consumption was higher than forethought, And therefore, the targets were achieved 4 years before. Now, this stopped for a while the investments. However, the next decade will be characterized by the second Renewable Energy Directive, will be characterized by new policy, the Paris Agreement. And we can see already by the draft national climate energy plans that there will be a new influx of renewable energy in the region. This was unfortunately made 1 month ago. Otherwise, we could have also the draft national climate energy plans of North Macedonia, for example. Obviously, this is only one part of the story. We should not deploy renewable energy just because of a target, of a policy, because we have to achieve some targets set together. There are other reasons. As Luca mentioned, pollution is something that should be tackled, and in particular at the city level in Southeast Europe, it's a very present issue. Now, I want to stress one thing. This is not the graph of the top 15 cities of Southeast Europe per pollution, but for Europe. It's all Europe, but still, we see that the Southeastern European cities have the highest level of pollution of all Europe, 6 to 4 times higher than the WHO limits. So this is a very weak, it's a reason why to develop more modern renewable energy, also because these levels of PM2.5 are due to the fact that many people consume traditional biomass for heating purposes. Unfortunately, it's not possible to identify what a target for energy poverty. Energy poverty is something that has not been defined officially. We can say that a situation of energy poverty is when an household cannot afford the full array of energy services to fill its own social and economic needs. Now, there are some proxy measures to understand energy poverty, and one of that is the lack of access to clean cooking. Clean cooking, obviously, it's not a very present manner in a European context. In Southeast Asia, the lack of access to clean cooking is the 4th cause of death for women. Here the situation is better, but still we have a very high shares of households without access to non-polluting system. And so we have up to 40% of households, for example, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, lacking this access. In a region where 23,000 people die every year because of indoor air pollution, this may be another call for the use of renewable energy inside our households. And the biomass role in the region is huge if we look at the residential sector. Up to 60% of the energy needs of household in Kosovo are covered by this solution and by bioenergy. And most of that is in the form of traditional bioenergy, which is not bad per se, but can be improved to improve the quality of life of the residents. Now, this is a very small example of something we try to do in IRENA, which is to understand the effects of renewable energy in our daily life. We know that energy does not live in a bubble. Energy is something that it's a very important part of our daily life. We don't think about it obviously every day, but the use of energy changes our quality of life and the economy of our country. So what we try to do is to compare the future given by scenarios and trying to understand through an energy, economic and environmental model what this will mean, what renewable energy will mean in the future in terms of improvement or not of our daily life. Now, one important thing is that any policymaker will tell you is that how many jobs renewable energy will destroy, because the fossil fuel people will have to leave their jobs. Will this be a problem for large areas? So, what we did this time was to take Southeast Europe, and this was the very first time we focused our analysis in this region, to understand what renewable energy may mean in terms of employment and GDP. We use a model called the remap and compared to the business as usual scenario. And the result is good. and we know also from other examples, but renewable energy do not destroy the jobs, do not create unemployment. This is even in this region that is reliant on fossil fuels and on coal, the renewable energy world will have additional jobs. There will be more jobs, in particular in the trade sector, and the important element I want to stress here is that 50,000 new jobs will be created, but the skill mismatch, so the lack of knowledge about renewable energy needs to be filled in order to have actually people able to work in this region. And this is up to 2050, so there is time, but it's something that should be tackled now. What about the GDP? Another concern of policymakers is that renewable energy is expensive, renewable energy needs a complete change of our transmission system. May this be too expensive for us? Well, again, we compared the business as usual scenario and the remote case, and this meant that renewable energy actually creates wealth. Renewable energy makes economic sense. $500 billion up to 2050. And as you can see, there is a decline path over there, and that's because the region do not have a supply chain industry, an industry for energy transition related technologies. If that will be tackled, that number will be higher. Now, sorry if I had all this introductory cap on outside the district heating, but this means all these numbers represent an opportunity not only in the power sector. This is an effect that will be created if we tackle all the end users, because we always forget about the heating sector when drafting renewable energy policy. I mean, it's common that people first look at the power sector. And in the region, there is a district heating opportunity. The region is already endowed by large networks of district heating, mainly run by non-renewable energy. Now, the report has a focus on biomass, so that's why that number over there represented the biomass fueled district heating. But still, the gray area represents how much opportunity there is to decarbonize an existing grid. But there are obviously key barriers in the region that we identified to decarbonize the district heating system. The first is obviously the high cost. District heating is a capital-intensive investment, has high upfront capital investment requirements. The people that will invest in this, they will want an investment return, and to ensure it, you will need an anchor load. And the existing of an anchor load, it's necessary to fight the second problem, that is the uncertainty around the use of the network. But if we create an anchor load, we are forcing people to only one system of heating, and the consumers may not be too happy to be in a natural monopoly for their heating needs. And this may have create reputational damage even to the policymakers, which may decide not to invest in district heating if that will be the case. There is another thing that is happening, is that fossil fuel are artificially cheap, because we do not account for their externalities, to the problem that they create in our local and global environment. And finally, the technical suitability, the technical barriers that exist, like distribution losses, space requirements, and seasonality, in particular for the solar-powered district heating. So, this set of questions are mostly known in the economic world, and that's why 1 year ago, to tackle all the barriers for renewable energy, IRENA partnered with the IEA in 2021 to identify the policies for the future. Because we cannot solve, as someone said, we cannot solve the problems of the future with the system of the past. So we identified the new policies that we grouped in 3 categories. The first category are the deployment policies: feed-in tariffs, feed-in premiums, fiscal incentives, the classic deployment policies that we already know. The second level of policies are the integrating policies. So those policies meant to make renewable energy playing in the energy sector on the same playing level field of fossil fuels for real. And the third level are the enabling policies. Basically, if we change our energy sector, we have to be sure that everyone around it, the non-energy part of the world, will be able to take advantage of it in order to gain the maximum benefit and the lower cost. So let's see how this applies to district heating in this region, in particular for low temperature district heating. We identified some policies. This is an ongoing work actually. This report, Renewable Energy Policies and Climate Transition, will see a second edition dedicated only to heating and cooling around the world. And this is something like a preview of some of our first results of new policies for district heating. The first is quite known. Deployment policies are the most common one, are the zoning mandates. In order to create an anchor load, you have to identify those areas where district heating is feasible, not expensive, and then it can cover the larger part of the population. An example came from Denmark that has a long history of district heating with zoning mandates since the 80s, and they made sure to avoid one important thing for the heating sector, basically to avoid the duplication of infrastructure investments. So to not have the district heating system competing with the gas grid. It must be known, however, that this means that if they are not competing, people cannot have access to both technologies, meaning that again they are in a situation of natural monopoly. It's something that should be decided at the policy level if this is something we want. The second policies for deployment policies are the financial incentives, quite obvious subsidies related to decarbonization impact that guarantees or concessional finance from a multilateral development bank if the city is not able to secure financing locally. On the second layer of policies, we have the integrating policies, and in this case I'm mainly in the technical world, in the technical sphere. So financing for refurbishment of distribution networks, because we cannot use steam pipes for low temperature district heating. And this was something that Germany is doing, is on the forefront. In particular, the city of Munich convert all the old steam pipes to hot water pipes in order to achieve the ambitious goal of 100% renewable district heating by 2040. And this is leveraging on existing infrastructure. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. And then there is a second layer that is quite important. If we build now a district heating system, we have to think about what will be our world, not in the next 5 years, but in the next 50 years. And most of the, if not all, the energy scenarios tell us that there will be a huge influx of electrification of the transport sector and electrification of the heating sector, and a large availability of very, very cheap variable renewable energy. Now, this does not mean that we have to use this electrification for the district heating, but that grid system will have some needs. And those needs will be paid. To cover those needs, the grid system will have to pay someone. And that could be a district heating system able to provide storage, able to provide system stability in the long term. So we have to think about how to, what the future, the energy system of 2050 will be when we are designing the district heating of today. And finally, the enabling policies. How to make sure people accept district heating. And it's very important to have consumer protection policies in this case, because natural monopoly needs to be regulated. This is not something I'm saying, everyone knows that. And a good example comes from Sweden. Again, they have a long history of district heating, and they make sure that this is a service for the citizens, it's not only a benefit for the investor. And what they do is that they make sure that whoever is in charge of the district heating system must have open books. full transparency, capacity to provide all the data on the cost, on the procurement of technology, and the citizens have the right to leave the system, to leave the district heating without any economic repercussion if the pricing mechanism changes. This makes people very careful about the use of the district heating system. So the anchor load is there, but you have to work to keep it. It's your responsibility to maintain that anchor load that we gave to you. They give them a social role, a very important social role. Then a way to make sure that people appreciate district heating is obviously demonstration projects. Let's show what the future will be now, and then US people arrive and accept it, because if they have experience with bad district heating system, for example, they may not be too eager to accept it, a new district heating in the future. And obviously carbon pricing. This is something that maybe local policymakers cannot do, but it's important to remember, now that we're talking about renewable energy, that fossil fuel make harm our environment, and they are not paying for it. Once we account for that harm, renewable energy will be a no-brainer. So in conclusion, this is the first result of our analysis for low temperature district heating. There are several policies, and each of them tries to tackle a singular barrier. In some cases, policy creates new transitional barriers. The most important one maybe, and the more clear one, is the heat mandate zones that create uncompetitive market monopoly. That's why you need a second layer of policies, which is the monopoly oversight, and so on and so forth. Every policy is related to another. So I conclude now, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. As Luca said, this week we released this report. I invite you to download it, to share it, to read it. I believe it's a very good piece of work, and a lot of very brilliant IRENA colleagues worked on it. So thank you.